Emperor Haile Selassie, global icon of resistance, died under natural causes. But what if that story was crafted? What if the real truth was buried alongside him? They hailed him as a god, Lion of Judah, the King of Kings. But how does a man worshipped by millions, vanish into obscurity? Why don't your history books tell you how Emperor Haile Selassie, one of the most iconic African leaders of the 20th century, ended up buried under a toilet floor for 17 years? Was it betrayal from his own people? Was it a Western-backed regime change? Or was it something far more complex and uncomfortable? In 1936, Haile Selassie stood alone before the world, his country. Ethiopia had been invaded by Mussolini's fascist army. Poison gas rained from Italian plains. Civilians were massacred. Selassie pleaded with the League of Nations. "It is us today. It will be you tomorrow." His speech shocked the world, but the world looked away. The League did nothing. The West silent. Why? Because Ethiopia wasn't just any African country. It was the only one that had never been colonized. It was a symbol, a threat, a reminder that Africa could stand on its own. And Haile Selassie embodied that defiance. Crowned in 1930, Haile Selassie claimed descent from King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. He declared himself elect of God, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah. In Jamaica, his rise inspired a new spiritual movement, Rastafari, which saw him as a living messiah. Bob Marley would later call him the Black Christ returned. But what kind of god-king loses his empire? Fast forward to the 1970s, Ethiopia is crumbling under famine, corruption, and economic collapse. Selassie, now in his 80s, is increasingly isolated. He's accused of hoarding wealth while millions starve. Western media begins to turn. BBC footage shows starving children. Grain silos locked while people die. Suddenly the world forgets the liberator and begins to see a dictator. But wait, is that the whole story? Let's rewind. Ethiopia was too important to ignore. The Horn of Africa was a geopolitical chessboard in the Cold War. America needed a foothold. The Soviets wanted in Selassie, a proud Pan-Africanist, walked a delicate line. But by 1974, whispers of a coup grew, louder. And then, almost overnight, the Derg, a Marxist military junta, seized power. How? According to historian Paul B. Hensa, a former CIA operative in Ethiopia, the U.S. was not unaware of the growing dissent. Some argue that Washington may have quietly welcomed the shift, as Selassie was no longer useful. Sound familiar? Was arrested. No trial. No charges. He simply disappeared. Officially, they said, he died of natural causes. But eyewitnesses, including his personal physician, claimed otherwise. He was allegedly smothered in his sleep. The regime buried his body beneath an office. Floor in the palace later converted into a toilet. A king reduced to a corpse under concrete. But why was his death hidden for so long? The Rastafarian community never accepted his death. They believed he had ascended. Some still do, but in Ethiopia. The Derg rewrote the narrative. They erased his legacy from schools. They burned portraits. They banned any public mention of his name. We were taught he was a tyrant, said one Ethiopian exile in a 2001 New York Times interview, but our grandparents whispered his name like a prayer. In 1991, Derg fell. Selassie's remains were finally discovered, right where rumors said they'd be buried beneath a latrine. But even then, the truth remained murky. No official state funeral until 2000, 25 years after his death. Even then, it was controversial. Some leaders refused to attend, others feared what his memory might reignite today. Selassie is remembered as one of the key architects of African unity. He helped establish the Organization of African Unity, the precursor to the African Union. Stood up to fascism when Europe cowered. He fought for African independence when colonialism seemed permanent. Yet his name is barely whispered in modern African politics. Why? Because powerful leaders, especially black ones, who challenge global systems often end up erased. So what do we make of Haile Selassie, a god or a man? A visionary or a failed ruler? A liberator or a tyrant? Perhaps he was all of these things, but more importantly, he was ours. A symbol of African dignity and global resistance. So ask yourself, why wasn't this version of his story taught in your school? Why was a man who stood against fascism and colonialism hidden behind silence? Who benefits when black leaders are demonized or forgotten? They tried to bury him, but his story, like so many black truths, refuses to stay underground. Because history isn't just about what happened, it's about what we're told, what we're not. And if we don't reclaim our history, someone else will write it for us. If this opened your eyes, don't let it stop here. Like, share, and comment. History matters if you believe these stories need to be told. Subscribe for more Untold. Black history before they silence it again.